It's preparation phase, attuned to accelerationist current. Okay, this is probably going to be corny. Yeah, it says to manifest Nick Land through realistic magical summoning, drawing from occult traditions like chaos magic, sigil work, and accelerationist mimetics. Treat this as a psychodramatic ritual. It's not literal sorcery, as magic operates through belief, intention, and symbolic action, but a structured process to invoke his essence, ideas, and perhaps even draw his attention in the digital ether, ground it in real-world actions, reading his texts, engaging with his concepts, and using modern tools like AI or social media as amplifiers. Okay, well, I guess we've been summoning you for a while then.
Yeah, you seem pretty good at it, honestly.
So I think the reason we initially wanted to talk this time around here was just, well, twofold. One, the Amazon ban, and two, this is video number 666 on the channel.
So what better guest to have on than Nick Land?
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of the situation that short circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
No, I am interested, before we, talk about the Amazon ban, what you do make of this. I guess you said that the actual rhythm of English beats to the number 666 last time we had you on. And so that's why I was like, okay, we got to bring Land back on here. But then, it is something you also kind of come back to every once in a while from X, right? And so I don't know. I'm just maybe for Anne, you could explain a little bit about that, because I think she's a little less deep into the lore.
Well, this particular topic that you're on, which is a sub theory of, I guess, the burgeoning science of 666ology or whatever it is this is something that really evolved with a spiral of people on X in conversation, and lots of people are still doing, I think, really valuable things with it, which is that if I could I'll just run it as in anecdotal mode, because I think that's probably best, actually, which is the suggestion that I made, and I think it came through me probably first, but if someone out there is saying, no, you're stealing this insight, I'm very open to the possibility of that, is that the basic form of the poetic epic in English, which is iambic pentameter. So it's this rhythm that consists of 5 iambs, and each iamb is basically 2 beats. So it's a 10-syllable line. Sometimes it's extended to 11. I think it's called a feminine ending if it does that. Anyway, the suggestion was that this form in English is peculiarly inclined towards having results in the I think basic English gematria called AQ, or Anglossic Kabbalah, or AQ can stand alphanumeric Kabbalah. There's various ways that can be unpacked. You can find that very easily on this Cypher's news site, which I find the most convenient, and there's a whole culture around that now. So if you have a phrase from English epic poetry and numerize it, very conveniently on this calculator, if you don't want to do it by hand, it comes out as 666, much more likely than seems that would be expected at random. That's to say, you're being coaxed in that direction by that particular poetic form. And after making this suggestion, someone very quickly responded saying, well, look, the very first line of Paradise Lost, which is of man's first disobedience and the fruit, is a 666 line. And, I've since from other people had a whole, I think must be using AI, that every line in Paradise Lost that comes to that is enumerated. I think it is the most common, certainly, of repeat digits. So there's a few 777s, a very small number of 888, some 555s, but 666s are much more likely than that. So that's really the clue that has led people to start wondering, well, what's going on in this? I mean, and obviously the Miltonic example is just crazy, because it's an epic poem about the fall and about Lucifer, and the fact that its very first line begins 666 is just, on the surface, a crazy, let's say, crazy coincidence. So that's that little kernel within, obviously, a much larger constellation of interest in it.
Right. And this is the website that you referenced is the ciphers.news, ciphers with a Y. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And if you want to find this particular cipher, you go to, there's a set of, the ciphers are in categories, and there's one called CCRU. And within that, there's I don't even remember quite what it calls it. Let me see.
You got the
alphanumeric Kabbalah. Yes, alphanumeric Kabbalah.
Right. And then you got the squares, the trigonal, the primes, you got QWERTY and Sinks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's the one we're talking here.
A lot of noodling that could be done about this, the way they relate to each other. And it's often a bunch of the ciphers have interesting relations to each other. Some are harmonic in the sense that they will always decimally reduce to the same value. So, for instance, I don't know whether you can see it or you've got it out, but there's one, a very simple cipher called ordinal, and that's related to alphanumeric Kabbalah in such a way that it's harmonic with it always. So, if
here, I got it pulled up.
If a phrase in alphanumeric Kabbalah is a 666 and therefore numerically, digitally reduces to 9, ultimately, then the ordinal, whatever it is in ordinal, will also digitally reduce to 9.
That's a bit over my head. I feel like, wait, if you're saying, like, if the phrase or sentence,
choose a word. Just choose a word,
okay.
Even. Well, pick a word at random.
Okay, and pick a word.
Baby.
Okay.
Sorry, what is the word? 80.
Comes baby. It comes to 30.
Baby. Okay, baby. Let's put baby in. So, okay, baby, interestingly, is 66 in AQ. So if you digitally reduce 66, it's 6 and 6 is 12, 1 and 2 is 3. The ordinal value is 30, and obviously 33 and 0 is also 3. And it will always be, because those ciphers are harmonized, it will always be that they will digitally reduce to the same number. There's other strictly harmonic ciphers with alphanumeric Kabbalah as well. One called English Standard, which is, I think we might have been talking about this last time we talked about the fact that these classic gematrias, both the Hebrew and the Greek, they go in these decimal chunks. So it goes, the first 9 letters are single digit numbers, 1 to 9, and then the next 9 letters goes from 10 to 90, and then whatever letters you've got left over goes like 100, 200, 300, whatever it is, however much slack you've got at the end. And this English Standard cipher does that with English. So it's like if you were wanting to say, well, what would a gematria, an English grammatica look like? And you were just simply basing it on these classical ones, it's what you'd come up with. And it too is strictly harmonic with alphanumeric Kabbalah. And so in the case of baby, the number it gives us is 705. So 7 and 5 is 12. And again, 12, 1 and 2 is 3. So whatever. I mean, that's just one dimension of this. I'm just really saying these various ciphers all have complicated relations with each other in different dimensions. But I sort of feel that, yeah, go.
Yeah, you feel what? Sorry, no, go.
No, I was just going to say, personally, I sort of use AQ as the kind of bread and butter one, and all the others are kind of orbiting it in complicated patterns. Yeah. And
because then,
it's so simple.
Because this one's more simple. The other ones are a lot more complicated.
Because it's just, that's why it's called alphanumeric Kabbalah. It's in fact, with hexadecimal, the letters A through E, I think, are all given a number on the same principle. So you count 0 to 9, and then A is 10, B is 11, C is 12, D is 13, E is 14, F 15. So that means it's a base 16 numeracy, and it's obviously used in various kinds of digital media and computer programming and stuff like that. So all alphanumeric Kabbalah it does is it just extends that exactly same, very simple process to the end of the alphabet. And because there's 26 letters, so you've got A is 10 and it goes through to Z is 35. So that extraordinary simplicity is, I think, what just gives it a certain status as being, you know, a bottom line cipher, really. Among its fruits. The most relevant fruit in this case being that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, as it's specifically cited in Genesis, is 666.
So if I were to type that in here, for instance, that's what we would come up with?
Yes, you can type in, yes. You've got to, of course, exactly right. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Holy cow, look at that. Yeah, and the Torah was not written in English either, which is one of the crazy things about that.
Well, yes. So I think the assumption here, or the sort of working presupposition, is that the King James version, the authorized version of the Bible, is inspired for the purposes of English culture. Like, obviously, the Hebrew gematria is also different. I mean, alphanumeric Kabbalah is specifically devised for English. It will work for all alphabetical languages, but it certainly won't work for Hebrew or for Greek. So and those are the languages basically of the Bible originally.
So there's something from the future in English, and it taking up the role it's had in history, perhaps.
Yes, I mean, one is wandering into the realm of speculation in various ways at this point.
Yeah.
So the actual evidence, the just hard, incontrovertible data, is just what you get from these Kabbalistic results, where it's just like there is simply no question that the English phrase as found in the KJV, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, is 666 in alphanumeric Kabbalah. That's just absolutely indisputable. If you then say, well, what is going on here? Then you are into more involved speculations, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and that's obviously just what I'm going to be inclined to want to do. Are you saying the more important thing that you can do with alphanumeric Kabbalah is not, speculate as to ontologically what's going on with it, but is more important just to use it or something like that?
I think all I'm saying is that there are strata of evidence, and there's a bottom level of evidence that is just absolutely solid. It's as solid as any evidence could be. It's just like it's as solid as a kind of mathematical result. It's of the same epistemological status, the same absolute clear evidence as saying that 6 times 6 is 36. It's just beyond any sensible dispute. And then when you get into more complicated questions to do with the structure of time, of providence, of inspired literature, of divine influence on scripture, then obviously you're moving into things that could definitely be more questionable to people. And it would be great if one was able to do that in a systematic fashion, like climb it as a kind of ladder, like that there's at the ground level there's this absolutely solid basis of certainty, and no doubt at a certain level of obscure gnosis that there's great darkness and confusion. And so is it possible, like mountain climbing, to sort of go from something very solid to something as solid as possible, and then climb up methodically this ladder? And yes, I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to be super dogmatic about that.
Yeah, I'm still, sort of philosophically and theologically interested in the speculative questions about the future acting on the present and or on, in this case, stuff artifacts or things that we still have from the past, right?
Yes.
And that whenever there's something that we might call coincidence or serendipitous or fortuitous, that it's like, well, what if it's not though? Whenever something in my life or a whole series of things happens in a way where it's all just too coincidental, but also it would be impossible to plan. But then if you were to write a story about it in a novel, it would come off as bad fiction because it'd be like, oh, well, that's bad writing because that's too obvious or that's too convenient, you know? It does make you wonder about the nature of reality, you know?
Yes, for sure. 100%. So for me, certainly to discover that, or, be told, in fact, in this case, in a way that then can be checked and is then absolutely confirmed in the most rigorous form possible, that the first line of Paradise Lost is what the language I use for it is, it's in Beast Pulse, taking the 666 obviously as the 666 of the Book of Revelation, but that's only the third 666 actually in the whole of the Bible. But anyway, not just for a moment, at least to suspend that question. I can't see how that doesn't raise questions for people. And I would have thought for most people, what would happen is simply that they would say, look, okay, this is weird.
Right.
But it's too weird. Like, it's going to just break up too much and go places too strange to actually spend much time thinking about this. And, where we are predominantly now in history, and I think especially in the history of religion, of our religion, our religious history, that's the normal response. It's just to say, this points outside of the sphere of secular probability so drastically that it just can't be entertained. It's just unhelpful to entertain it. It would be too ruinous of common sense, as it has now been established, to take it very seriously. But the thing is, if you don't take that attitude and you do delve into it more, you start heaping up this stuff to an extent that really there's no credibility to that gesture of dismissal. I mean, it's humanly understandable, and it's not that people are under any kind of obligation to go down these roads, or even that going down these roads, if someone says, oh, it's just going to be unhelpful, you're not going to find anything very useful about it. It's tantalizing, whatever, but it's not the sort of investigation that is going to get us anywhere helpful. I mean, I can understand that response for sure. But at the same time, if it's extrapolated to someone's just denying that there is anything here, that there's just denying that there is actually a really extreme provocation to thought, I don't think that's really sustainable. It's only sustainable by deliberately ignoring what is happening. So I know this is all on a meta level in terms of your question, which I hope we can get into. Like, of course, what is roughly going on here, or what's our sense of how we start approaching what is going on here?
Yeah, and I don't know. I know this is way out of left field, but I am curious just to hear what you think about it so far.
It's interesting.
I mean, as you know, oh, sorry, Anne. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, it's interesting. It's just like a field of thought that you don't even think to explore, but it is fascinating.
Well, at one level, I think it is just about vindicating the King James Bible as inspired literature. And by inspired literature, I mean it's not just reducible to a set of contingent social, political, historical decisions made by a particular group of translators in the years up to 1611. You know,
Right.
their conclusion, the book as we have it, was in some sense very, very specifically guided to contain intelligible messages that could not imaginably have been deliberately grafted into it by the people doing that work. So that for me is the first conclusion, and it's one. I mean, I can imagine that lots of Orthodox Christians would find this whole process of investigation a bit iffy at best, but at least I think they could agree that far, that it's a sort of vindication of the fact that there's something very special about this book. I mean, other things too. We started off with Milton, and you can't, I think if you're going to say it about the KJV, then for the same grounds, you have to at least extend that to some considerable extent to Milton and to other things. I mean, the other really sort of classic hook of one of these Beast Pulse lines is to be or not to be, that is the question. Which is, I think, the most famous line in the English language, probably. I mean, at least outside the Bible, we maybe even including the Bible in terms of just familiarity to people. So that also seems so there's a certain sense where it becomes something that etches the canon, like, you know, something earns secure canonicity if these kind of results attached to it.
Yeah, if canonicity is not, it's not just like what book had a great influence. It's also, or what book still speaks to us. But it could also be like,
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, yeah. So if it's not just, you know, the measure of canonicity is not just whether it still speaks to us, or the impact that it has had on other texts or events. You're saying that that we might be getting at another metric.
I'm saying I think that canonicity is a discovery more than a human project or invention. I think, you know, as we've spoken about before, there are politics about the canon, but those politics cannot graft these kind of data into the canon. You know, whatever you say, I mean, for instance, you know, there's a lot of politics around translations of the Bible, versions of the Bible. So, you know, there's the Douay Rheims, like Catholic English Bible, for instance, and then there's these various newfangled English translations that are variously supposed to be, you know, closer to modern common parlance, maybe closer to the Greek or Hebrew, more accurate to the original Greek and Hebrew, whatever. People have motivations for these. Then here you have a test, I think. You know, you can go to these translations of the Bible and you can say, well, is do they actually produce these Kabbalistic outcomes that we expect on the basis of our engagement with the KGV? And if they don't, I mean, do Irene's, the key tests that I've made on it, it just doesn't come to the same standard as the KGV just on this level of evidence. It just produces just much more just random noise in terms of these outcomes. So I'm saying that on one level, this is a test for canonicity. And then going a little bit further, it's actually then a model of canonicity that is taking it beyond the realm of human secular historical projects and human secular historical intelligibility. It's no longer that you're just saying, oh, as you say, this is still influential. This was a great human achievement. There's something here that is beyond great human achievement, because it's not something that was ever intended or designed. It's something that can be extracted, that was never deliberately put in by any human agency.
Yeah, the very possibility of that kind of discovery is undermined by an approach to education that is giving us summaries and sort of locked and loaded PowerPoint presentation interpretations of great texts, right? Which is my experience with the university, not always the case, right? You do have professors who are doing really awesome stuff, making sure that you actually do spend some time with some primary texts. But there is this tendency just to lock and load a bunch of PowerPoints that go along with some textbooks, and the textbooks just have some summaries, right?
I mean, that's definitely true and appalling. But I think also in a much more understandable and forgivable level, I think the notion that there is a kind of sacred dimension to literature is extremely unfashionable. So, it's allowed to have politics, it's allowed to have ideology, it's allowed to have even some kind of, artistic virtues understood strictly in a strictly secular fashion. But the notion that, say, for instance, poet invoking the muses is doing anything serious is not something moderns find very easy to accept. It's, the notion that something is being brought in from beyond the sphere of human understanding is no longer a fashionable understanding of what the greatness of literature lies in, even though obviously historically it was much more, if not almost universally accepted.
There's a lot of stuff at Theory Underground. There's a ton of stuff on the front end, and there's even more on the back end. And so no one would blame you if you were like, I don't even know where to begin. The same is true with the world of theory. Where do you even begin in the world of theory? When I started this 3 years ago, Theory Underground was, and I think still remains, the only neither left nor right approach to theory that is critical of the presuppositional frameworks of both left and right, as well as everything else, down to the very medium itself, right? We have, at this point, developed a ton of on-ramps into the world of theory for people who are new to it. You might be a postgraduate, you might be a high school dropout, it doesn't matter.
workers with earbuds, renegade professors, it doesn't matter. This is a place where you are able to do stuff that you would not be able to anywhere else. But what, do you want to go back and binge 100 hours of private lectures? Maybe. But if you don't, and you want to actually do stuff with us, well then, I have exciting news. 2026 is around the corner, and we're kicking off a year of Theory 101. Lectures on Introduction to Karl Marx, Introduction to Martin Heidegger, Introduction to Emmanuel Levinas, Introduction to Bourdieu, Baudrillard, Lacan. There's so many of these thinkers that seem impenetrable, but they're not actually. Once you understand some of their basic concepts, you then are going to have a much easier time reading them on your own. But more importantly, it's situating them within the broader field that they are a part of, which is not just the world of theory, but is also the world of philosophy, which is itself a part of the world of the humanities, which is itself a part of the world of the liberal arts. To situate is one of the big projects of 2026. Would you like an introduction to the situation and to thinking about it through all of these amazing thinkers? Well, you might want to become a subscriber then. We're also going to have a whole bunch of guest lectures. There's some really cool ones in the works. Great collaborations. I can't tell you too much about it just yet, but get involved. If you want to become a subscriber, there are 3 tiers of involvement that you can subscribe at. The bottom one gets you access to the past course content. It gets you access to the upcoming courses, to the ongoing seminars. It's pretty much like the basic one, right? But the higher ones get you special access to things that go on a monthly basis that help you develop your theory writing, that help you actually publish your first book, etc. And so if you're interested in that kind of development, if you want to take this from being like a mere pastime or hobby to being something that actually develops you and your ability to think about and understand the world and express yourself, then Theory Underground 2026, it is the place to be subscribing to. And I think you should do it. Like, this is not just an advertisement. This is like real life, guys. Like, this is what matters. And I'm not saying this to a giant audience. I'm not saying this to anyone or no one. I'm saying this to you. And I'm saying it to an audience that I've been very careful to cultivate, of people who are serious about what they're doing here, who aren't just doing this because they're like consumer nihilists. I'm looking for people who want to make themselves better. I'm looking for people who are committed to future humanity. I'm to an intergenerational base building kind of project. If that's you, if that speaks to you, get involved now, because it makes all the difference. I need you. I need people who are serious on board. And I'm looking forward to kicking off this 2026 cohort. I hope to see you there. And so get involved, and we'll do that.